say, look, this has to be right for this car gets on the track.
And this is before you guys ever argue. Because I'm not saying you guys ever argue. I'm just saying, I'm just saying.
I didn't know they stopped.
Yeah, whoever buys the beer at the end of the night. So
hey, I'll tell you what, it doesn't matter if they argue or not. Their dad, he might be an old guy. He'll settle that real quick. That's a tough man.
If your brother's listening, dude, I'm so sorry. Just don't punch me when you see me next time. I love you, buddy.
We try to buy the best components we can afford to buy. First of all, I try to buy everything that's made in USA if I can, because it's going to be a bit better quality than a Chinese part. It kind of sounds like what Kenny was using. And unfortunately, we've got the same type of hubs that he's got. A Winters hub or a PEM or whatever. It's something we need to look at because we've never looked at the wheel stud situation like that.
Not knowing what brand he was running, talking about those wheel studs, Kenny did say that after taking a look at what they had on there, they will use nothing but the ARP nuts and bolts.
And that's something that we need to go back and look at on our own stuff as well.
Because that really, when you think about it, that's not something that you look at all the time.
And that's the thing too, is you get stress cracks and everything else. I mean, you get you
get a rough race.
Willamette Speedway, for one, here a couple weeks ago had a really rough track. No offense, to Chris.
It was Mother Nature. Chris.
Yeah, it was Mother Nature. But you get into some of these things. I was talking to Colin Weinbarger just a couple days afterwards, and he said, literally, dude, his car was up on the side almost every single lap. You're driving in
Kyle Yak broke a wheel out.
Yeah.
Right.
The actual wheel itself broke.
Right. Yeah. Now, thank goodness that was the left rear and not the right rear, because he would have taken a ride like Kenny did. But, other things, Jeff, what are you looking at, Jeff? What are the little things that make the program a front-running program?
Just all the little details. There's not specific one thing. It's everything. You make sure you're using the best components, and you've taken the time to make sure that it's set up correctly. And get the driver comfortable is a lot of it. You've really got to do that and make sure that he can do his best job, or her, whoever's in the car, to do what's right.
You're giving the best piece.
So, exactly.
I know that when I was working, years ago as a young kid, started working on the late models and learning from Tony Whitney and Don Irely. Now, there's two guys that when you went over a race car,
Don Irely for
it
sure.
went under a microscope, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, every single nut and bolt was checked.
Exactly. We do the same thing
and
every
that
week.
is something you had to do. And with those cars back then, with Irely and Whitney, you didn't see a lot of failure in the race cars themselves. And, I think that is something that every single week, you get that car washed, you get the sides off, and you go through
and you look
front to back and look at everything.
When you're washing, you can see lots of things.
Right.
Is there an oil leak coming from here? Is the rear cover leaking? Is there a bearing dying or something weird in the rear end? Where's that oil coming from?
Right.
And same deal with the engine oil. Is there something else going on there?
Well, to recap, like what you said too, is that working on Kenny's car is we would go in after the races and stuff, wash it the next day or on Sunday or whatever, or have our weekly double check and everything. And we went down to Willamette a couple years ago, and Willamette just wasn't good to us. Lost a rear end. Just happens to be a racing accident. Lost a drive line, replaced it. Same night out, and then lost the yoke. I mean, it was just, and know for a fact we tightened everything up. But it's just those mechanical failures, those failures and stuff that if that driveline would have came out, out of the transmission or whatever, he would have went for a tumble. And those are the biggest things and stuff that are scary, especially as a crew guy, because you want to make sure that when you send your driver out there, I'm very confident in what I do, but when something like that happens, you try to overthink yourself. It's like, well, did I not do it, or did I do it, or did I do it?
What did you miss? You're second
and it's like,
yourself.
that's my best friend. I mean, very, very close. Our families are close. And to have something ever happen to him, and then think about the guilty conscious and stuff later on, thinking like, well, did I not do that?
Yeah.
That's the part and stuff that, just as a crew member, to make sure that car is safe, because he's going to go as fast as he's going to go, because that's just how they are.
Something like that, Josh, something like that is something you and I had to learn. Getting into the sport, we had to learn. Jeff, that's second nature. That's all he's ever known. His dad was, former champ at Willamette Speedway, Hanson Automotive Machine. Anything Hanson does, I can guarantee you it's double check, triple check. They do it right, and that's just something you guys have always done. I've been around your program a little bit, and I've seen how you've done things. It's impressive. These guys, you don't see a lot of stuff break on the 33C.
No.
And that goes back to, number one, doing it the right way and being taught how to do it the right way.
Yeah.
There's so many guys that cut corners in little places, and that's creates failure and wrecks and punctured fuel cells and Doug and his crew are in action.
Yeah. And we had lots of help over the years learning, Jerry York and Tim Walker and those guys with the 31 car,
right.
Bob Boyd and Randy and Matt and Steve and all those guys that helped Bob, and Charlie James and Mark Patterson and all those guys and learning some from Don Irely and Tony Whitney and JJ Zafino
right.
years ago.
Yeah, I learned a lot from JJ.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then obviously growing up around it, you pick up things and things and then the aspect from my personal stuff on the drag race side of things, you learn different things there and you see different things. And talking about fire bottles, the guy that builds our seat belts, Dennis Taylor out here in North Albany, runs a fuel funny car. He likes a halon system over a soapy water, he calls it, because at 200 miles an hour when he kicks the rods out of his fuel funny car, he doesn't want that soapy water underneath his rear tires.
Right.
He can't see he's in a flopper body. And the other part about the gas aspect, it'll go around a corner. If it hits the motor plate, that gas will come on around the corner,
right.
whereas the soapy water, the foam systems, will stop and deflect off the other direction. Mm-hmm. So that's some different aspects to think about on a fire system.
Well, I think with the halon and stuff too is that you don't have wind and with water, as soon as it hits the headers or hits intake, something that's hot, it's just going to steam
evaporate.
anyways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
With the halon too, though, it works so fast.
It does.
It's there. It's.
And the soapy water is a good system as well, and I think it's personal choice, but we need to be thinking about why are we not having these on our race cars?
Right.
Years ago,
that's the important part, right
like
there.
Kenny was saying,
exactly.
He took his helmet off and he held his breath because he knew what was about to happen.
Exactly.
His crew member and stuff, what got sick. Mm-hmm. But we were talking about that. Doug, had mentioned that some people get sick and all that type of stuff. But that initially, he has been through that system before, not only with NASCAR, but he's an avid dirt racer. He's, like he said, he's just like one of us. He's one of the coolest people to hang out with, to talk to. He's
you've hung out with Kenny.
God,
I think we kind of all met him, haven't we? But hanging out with him is a whole different gig because he's spent a whole time with him in North Carolina. And you better be ready because you don't know what's happening next.
Yeah, because he's just fun. He's a practical joker and stuff like that. But like you said, Tony Stewart and Ken Schrader basically said that was probably the coolest non-wing sprint car rollover. Mind you, it should have never happened. Mechanical failures and stuff happen. That's why we race and all that type of stuff. But it's good to see that it was okay. But you hit a good subject about taking something from another racing organization, drag racing, for example, and adapting it into our sport of dirt track, circle track racing, or even asphalt or whatever. Mm-hmm. A lot of people have taken from.
The off-road industry is another one. The desert racers, those guys, in my opinion, are probably the world's best fabricators.
They're crazy.
Make something hold up what they do.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you see, that's the thing is those are high-speed wrecks. Like we're on a closed course.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Exactly.
we hit something, we hit a car, we hit a wall.
These guys hit a berry
bush
bush
stop
and go
pretty quick. Yeah. Those guys, they've got to be in a safe race car or truck, whatever they're in. Because when they wreck, it's on open desert, and those guys, they're going.
Yeah.
They're wide open, and it's
even on their closed course stuff, they're flying through the air,
right.
30,
they're
40,
tumbling.
50 feet. Exactly.
Yeah. And the safety crew is a little farther
Exactly.
away.
Yeah, and a lot harder to get to.
Exactly.
A lot harder to get to.
It's so. I give you so much credit, Doug, for what you guys do. You guys to even sit there and volunteer to come out there or whatever and say, you know what? I want to be a track safety guy or whatever like that at a dirt track.
I'm going to go jump in somebody's fire,
right?
Out for
yeah.
Him,
and let's touch on that because I'll go back to the Brian
probably
Gary fire on the front stretch at Willamette. Now I'm in the box and the big wreck, on the front stretch. He gets upside down. There's a ton of fuel spilling everywhere. I come out of the box and as I'm going down the stairs to kind of assess the situation, to see what's going on. One of your guys, it was probably Tony, I think, was sliding across the fuel. He's in a puddle of fuel that's surrounding the race car. He's sliding across it, literally like a slip and slide. Comes into the cockpit. I can hear him yell something. Brian yells back. He reaches up, unhooks the belt. Brian had his hands down, and he was out of that car so fast. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow. I didn't even get down the stairs from the announcer's booth to the front stretch, and these guys were on the scene, had Brian out of the car, flipped the car over, rolled it away, and when everybody was safe, lit the fuel up, and you guys were there to put it out as well. But I could not believe how fast that happened. Another story going back to you.
And Tony was a little spooked about that.
Well, I bet he was.
He could feel the fuel soaking into his fire suit, and he said the hairs on the back of his neck stood straight up. And he's like,
bet it did.
"Out
But
of
he
here."
was there to do his job, though, too.
Right, he was there to do his job. We had lines, were getting pulled, and if anything were to happen, that's our number one priority: is go in and absolutely drench the driver and our crew member that are in
There
there. to
isn't
get 'em
anybody
out.
at that racetrack more selfless than that safety crew. You guys are risking your lives every bit as as much as these drivers are.
And see, that's the thing too. Like with Sunset, and I'm gonna give kudos. I mean, you guys, I'm like.
Well, I'm not talking about just them. I'm talking about the safety crews for what those guys do and what they
focused just on Willamette.
what they give up.
Well,
you guys are risking your life. I mean,
Yeah.
every safety crew. That's not something that, like you said, you think, you know what? I'm going to go risk my life to pull somebody out of a burning race car.
Yeah.
That's not a normal thought.
Well, and that's why I spend, it's about every 7-8 years, I spend $9,000 on fire suits. I have
You have to.
all of my regular crew, and then I also run the tow trucks. They all get fire suits because how many times have we been rolling a car over or something?
Right,
and
it'll catch on
standing
fire.
there?
Well,
So all my tow truck crew has fire suits. They're not. They're enough for those guys just to run away.
And see, the thing
to
is,
get out of it.
like you're saying and stuff too, is that you're rolling a car back over. I'm going to go back to what Kenny Wall said. We were talking earlier about where the safety switch is at for the on kill switch.
Right.
Literally right next to him.
Yeah.
Another
And
point
that's
that we
something
brought
that-
up.
I have to tell every driver that's upside down, hit your kill switch.
Yeah,
If
make
they
sure
can-
that
if
kill
they can
switch is where you
find
can
it.
get
Yeah,
to
they
it.
can
That's
find
the
it.
Yeah,
thing.
or if
Put
it isn't
next
way
to
back
you.
behind 'em.
Jeff brought that up earlier. Put it next to you. Make sure you can get to it fast.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny, that was one of the first things he said he did. Reached over
Yeah.
and shut it off. I mean,
Well, and I've done a lot of monster truck shows too, and
They have
it's
they have
so
a kill.
nice to have the ring. They put a ring on their back
And
bumper.
again,
And
the same
every one of them has exactly the same spot.
exactly because the sanctionizing body is requiring it to be in that
and
location.
that's where I think
Right.
every racetrack should have a mandatory rule of where that shut off. On the outside of a race car, behind the driver, or
Well,
where a safety crew can get to it
Sprint cars.
if a driver's knocked out.
Most of the sprint cars,
They have their kill switch right on
they
there.
they have a fuel shut off.
Yeah, they have their on and
right
off and then-
behind the left side rear tire.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody that does a lot of sprint car stuff knows they got to get in there and hit that valve or put your finger over the hole, the breather hole on the top of the fuel cell. Just little tricks you learn over the years. Late models and modifieds and street stocks,
It's a lot harder to get
nobody
to.
has anything standardized.
Right.
So literally every car is absolutely different.
And see, that's
hopefully-
where I think that's
well, and
where
that's
the
kind of what
problem.
the show is about. What do we do to make our sport safer for you guys, for the drivers, for the fans? I mean, NASCAR is using tethers on stuff to keep stuff from going in the stands, like we've
Yeah.
seen. A great idea. Do we need to do it on dirt cars, or not necessarily? We don't
UMP
see that a
for
lot,
a while required you to tether the springs,
right?
and I've not seen that with IMCA, but UMP required it.
Yeah, it's not something we see a lot, but how safe can you get?
Well, it just goes back to, all
How
these
s-
changes and stuff, race fans, we're not talking thousands of dollars. We're not even talking hundreds of dollars. We're talking about re-drilling another hole, putting your safety kill switch. This is one of the biggest things. Put your safety kill switch, if it's over on your right-hand side, move it 3 feet. Get, crimp another, or buy, an extra, 3 feet, of line, of cord or whatever, and then just remount it. It's that simple. It will probably take maybe a couple hours to do. It's a little bit of your time for safety, and that's the biggest thing. And then when you do get to the track, tell the fire safety crew guys, hey, look.
Yeah, make
this
sure
is
they
where it
know.
is. Or put, like I said earlier, put like a big orange sticker or something around it, something that's bright. Even paint
Yeah.
it fluorescent if
The
you have
road
to.
race guys, as I recall, have to
do
they
that.
Have to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
that
It's
about
just-
where the fire bottle is, and also where the battery switch is. As I recall,
just
the few
taking
cars
a-
I've been around of those.
Yeah, it's taken away from other organizations that have, developed, like Formula One. Their safety is just unbelievable. But they spend billions of dollars.
Yeah,
and
those
stuff
are the
on
most
their cars.
overpriced race cars
They're
in the
just
face
Yeah,
of
they
the
are.
planet.
Yeah,
the safety
yeah.
is great, but
that's
whole nother
whole nother bag.
Yeah.
But
And they have a very good safety crew.
they do.
That we've tried to emulate ourselves, at least in the earlier years after that. After what
But
they do.
taking away from other organizations, don't be just centered into just always look outside the box.
Yeah,
you know,
have an open mind.
Yeah,
Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with taking a safety rule from the NHRA and putting it on a dirt car.